Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second take of the first episode of the Nothing Better podcast with your host, Kyle Lutton. And our first guest tonight is one Leo Zimmerman. Leo, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here.
Aren't you so excited to be the first guest?
Oh, of course I am. It's an honor that is enjoyed by
Why
all
don't you
men.
tell everybody about what was the order of events for me asking you to be on the podcast?
Well, I'm pretty sure you just said, "Hey, I'm starting a podcast. Do you want to be the first guest?"
And so what was the the timeline of it?
Oh, this was yesterday.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, this was
I've been procrastinating on this for maybe 8 months. The start of the quarantine. How about that? We'll call it the start of the quarantine, March. Whatever numbers are, I got an English degree, and we'll talk a little bit about what you're studying right now. But I got a degree in English, so my number skills aren't great, and my word skills are mediocre. But yes, this has been postponed and delayed, and just whined about by myself and me hating myself for probably 8 months. But finally, yesterday, I was like, I'm going to do it. I am going to do it. I thought, why not have the most interesting person I know? One of the most interesting people I know. Just in overwhelming lifestyle and how you live your life. I would call you probably one of the most interesting people I know.
You make me sound like I'm an eccentric billionaire. You make me sound like I'm Bruce Wayne.
Like 40 years old. And you have like numerous life experiences.
I am 40 years old, and I do have.
I mean, you have the
life
mindset of a 40-year-old.
Practically,
I have the mindset of an 80-year-old.
Yeah,
We're only like 20. We're in our 20s. We're in our early 20s. Not even our mid. I can't even call myself my like mid 20s. I'm still at the age where I'm in my early 20s.
Yeah, you can't say you're mid 20s, not yet.
Not yet. And
not even close.
Not even close. So our life experiences are at a like maybe +1, but it's so small that you can't even call them life experiences, but we still live interesting lives.
Yes, and I don't think time is a restriction of experiences gained.
That's true. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, well, where to start?
All right, where are you from? Give us the minimum details that we know about you, but that the Chinese government can use to steal your social security number.
Well, I think they probably already have it, but okay. Really, really small town, Orville, Ohio, which nobody has ever heard of, but everybody's heard of Smucker's Jelly.
Is that legitimately where it's come from?
That literally, this is where it comes from. Half of this town is Smucker's. It's ridiculous how big the headquarters is.
So you're responsible for my love of peanut butter jelly sandwiches.
Yes, we are. Yeah, that would be me, because as you know, I run Smucker's. I own the corporation. Let's see. I go to Kent State University, just like you graduated from.
I did graduate from there.
Yes, and I'm studying political science with a minor in plea law and a concentration in international relations.
And we'll get a little bit more into that, because that's why I find you very interesting. The track you want to go down in your life.
Yeah.
So, give a geographical reference to where Orville is, because I'll just even start off. I don't even know where that is. I lived in Ohio for 4 years. Yeah. But that could be also said for most everything outside of a 10-mile radius of Kent, because I didn't have a car for the first 3 years of college. So I didn't go, I think I could tell you that Ravenna is east of Kent, but I can't tell you anything else other than that. And the only reason I know how to get to Ravenna because it's on one road and you don't have to turn.
It's about 50 minutes from Kent, and I think it's southwest. So it's between like Kent and Columbus, I guess.
Okay.
If you were like going toward Columbus, it's kind of that way.
So probably like an hour and a half south of Cleveland, southwest of Cleveland.
It's about an hour, yeah, south of
Okay.
Cleveland.
That's probably the best geographical reference.
Yeah,
Next to maybe Akron. You could probably say Akron because everybody knows where Akron is because of the
yeah.
king.
It's only 45 minutes away from Akron. We're like just far enough away from everything to not be able to go there on a Saturday night, but just close enough to know that it's there.
That's that's depressing. And it
Yeah,
sounds like most of Ohio.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's
I
because
truly hate this state.
like as we both know, there's not much in Kent because the entire town is like supported by the university. So it's not very big. It's not a like OSU type campus. It is a traditional campus of
Yeah, it's
you have the campus and then you have downtown. Then you have all the old people who have lived there for 40 years
for way too long.
for way too long, and you just wonder how they're able to deal with it because Kent has been ramping up. It's like a bell curve in our partying because when I started school, we were a little crazy on the partying, then we kind of dipped down, but I feel like it's ramping back up.
I do too. I think Kent is going to just get nothing but bigger in
Oh,
these
it's
next few
absolutely
years.
getting bigger,
Yeah,
but for sure becoming more of a party school
yeah.
because it wasn't known for its academic prowess to begin with.
Kent read, Kent write, Kent State.
And I don't know if this will get trademarked, but I'll just give a shout out. Barstool Kent. I don't know if you follow
Yes,
their
I do.
yes. And they came out with the shirts that I still need to go buy. It's the can't read, can't write, can party. And I wasn't much of a partier, and you're not much of a partier either, but it's
No.
still a mindset of what that university is. Is that even though you're not we don't go to frat parties, we still know how to have a good time.
Yeah, I don't see why. And this is maybe more of a deeper philosophical discussion, but I don't see the obsession with getting absolutely plastered. I don't see why would you want to just lose all control. And I
Well,
think that's one of the reasons that I never really got into the Kent party scene.
well, I can tell you, I never got into the Kent party scene. I've never been successfully, and I don't know after tonight's podcast, people will understand like the level of nerds that we are and why we probably never went to a frat party to begin with.
Yeah.
But
Well, I've
I'm
been to a
not.
frat party.
What was that?
I've been to a frat party.
Oh, so you've been to one more frat party than I've ever been because
Yeah.
I'm still at a net zero on frat parties, but it is I prefer just drinking with friends, and
Yeah.
that's it's the simpler things in life, and also the more socially not awkward things in life.
Oh man.
Yeah. So why Kent? Why did what? Because that's where our paths converge. Is at
Yes.
Kent State University, and I feel like this is going to be a focal point of tonight. But why did you choose to go to Kent?
The ROTC program, the political science program,
Ooh,
and they have great language programs. So multiple reasons, and Kent is just a stunning campus. I love that campus. Um,
it's probably one of the top maybe 5 places in Ohio that I know is like at the end of the day, the people are weird, but the campus is beautiful.
yeah, it's
It's
stunning.
administered interestingly. It's it's, the decisions some of the decisions that that campus has made, especially in like the last year that I went there, still kind of boggle me to this day. But you can't doubt that they don't put in way too much money into the grounds.
I don't think too much. I think just enough.
It's like $1 million plus.
I don't care. I think I really don't. I think walking out on those fall mornings or in those spring mornings when they're like they just done the landscaping and you got that black mulch and these bright blooming flowers, it's just perfect. That's what I want to see on my campus.
Gotcha. So you said ROTC and poli sci. What drove you in your life to be like, I want to join the Air Force?
You want the sappy answer?
Why not? I'm
I want to
all.
help.
We all know that you're about sappy, so hit us with the sappiness.
Yeah, I really want to help people. I want to help people, and I think that the most effective way to help people is through law, which is where I think I'm fairly proficient. And then I think also ROTC provides a very unique and amazing opportunity to get into law and to help people and get paid for it and to not have to struggle to pay for college and things like that.
Okay. So, is ROTC or is the Air Force a stepping off point for your law career?
I wouldn't call it a stepping off point because I do plan on making a career out of
Mm-hmm.
the Air Force, but I'm not going to lie, the big bucks will be nice after retirement.
And
Um,
when people think that when we say we use the Air Force for our own personal gains, we say that in the most meaningful way
yes,
because the Air Force offers it to us anyways. So why wouldn't we take advantage of it?
right. I
And
mean,
it's truly it. We're not stealing from the Air Force. They're already offering it to us. Why
at the
wouldn't
end
we?
of the day, you're still serving.
Oh, absolutely.
Why do you matter what my motives are?
And at the end of the day, the Air Force will get what the Air Force wants, and it's usually not what you want. So you might as well take everything from the Air Force that they are legally willing to give you.
Yes, exactly.
So
Plus, the
poli
titles are pretty
sci.
fun.
What was that?
I said, plus, the titles are pretty fun.
That is true. The titles are interesting.
The titles, yeah. I
So
mean, some of them are mouthfuls, but you gotta love some of them.
that is true. So why poli sci and not like English or one of the other degrees that you might use to pursue a career in law? Why does poli sci agree with your sensibilities?
I think politics is the one thing that affects everybody right below something like agriculture.
I bet even politics affects agriculture.
It does. And that's my point, is that politics is universal and it's never ending and you're always going to need it and you're always going to use it and you're going to have to understand it. And I think that especially in the United States there's this very distrustful stare into the political landscape. And I remember a time, I've always been fascinated with politics, and so I've always paid attention to it. And I remember being the one kid in middle school that the teacher would call on when she asked who was the Speaker of the House. And I was the only kid with my hand up. And then she'd call on me and I'd say it, and then she'd just look at the rest of the class disappointingly, and then I'd get bullied for it later. I was that kid. And I remember watching, like, the election of President Obama and through his term. And then I remember the end of his term and how all of the sudden everything just got very divisive. And it wasn't two people who had different views for the country anymore. It was two people who hated each other, and you had to like one of them.
I think that's very accurate, especially in the times that we are in right now. I think we talked about a little bit earlier that we're going to try our best to skate around for both of our future careers. Uh, but as of recording this is Saturday what's today's date? Because I'm a moron of like
Today is Saturday, November 7th.
November 7th, and as of right now, uh, Joe Biden has assumed the mantle of president
President
elect,
elect.
and Kamala Harris has assumed the title of a
Vice
historic title
President
of
elect.
the vice president elect. Yes, and it's only going to go downhill from here. Not because of their election, of what the reaction is from going to be from both sides, and I think
Yeah,
that's as much as I want to say about that. because I think it does agree with your point on it did seem like after former President Obama left in 2016, something went downhill, and it went downhill really quick. And I don't know if it was one side, and you can probably easily point to one side, and then the other side tried their best.
Followed suit.
Oh, and the other side then followed suit because
Yeah,
the other side saw it worked really well to get votes, and the
and that
end
was that.
product is what we were at 4 years later.
Yeah, but you can take the politician out of the political arena, but you can't take the politics out of the politician. So that's why no matter how often or hard you try to get me not to talk about politics, I can assure you it will come up at least once every now and again.
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of the hard point that I think we have to, or at least I have to skate right now as where I am in my life, is that I don't sub. How do I say this? I don't subscribe to either party because I think both parties have good ideas. And at the end of the day, one of them is going to be in charge of the country and the other one is not. And it's going to probably flip every 2 to 4 years.
Yeah,
And I'm not going to let myself be wrapped up as much by it.
and
Like,
it's a hard subject.
it is. But before we get too far into that rabbit hole, I guess I have like another question. So, why the Air Force and not any other branch of service? Because I feel like that's a key distinction. Because you could be a lawyer in any other branch of the armed services.
Yes.
Why the Air Force? Other than that, we have the best budget.
Yes. Other than that very glaring fact,
Probably
um,
next to the Navy, but the Navy also spends a lot of their money on warships.
and what I'm about to say might shock you, but had we lived closer to a coast, I would have joined the Navy.
You want to
The
hear?
only reason I'm in the Air Force is because I don't live near a coast.
Oh, you mean so you never had like you just never got exposed to the Navy?
Right. Well, I've never had the opportunity. I didn't want to move so far away from home for college. I wanted to kind of stay close to home. And if we like lived in Rhode Island, where I could go to a college that had naval ROTC,
They have
then
Navy ROTC everywhere.
yes, but
They have Navy ROTC in Colorado.
yes, but that training isn't obviously going to do that much to prepare you for the Navy. You can have
Do
an
you think any
airfield
of the training
anywhere,
that
but
you're
you
doing
can't
right now
have.
in ROTC is preparing you to be in the Air Force? I'll give you a quick answer. It's no.
I
And
know.
not to go down my beliefs on Air Force ROTC, but it's not. You would have been just fine being in a naval ROTC program. And I have a friend who just commissioned from Boulder's Navy ROTC program, and he's a surface warfare officer in Virginia right now. I don't know what ship he's on, but I wouldn't say it anyways for just personal reasons. But you want to hear a fun fact about me?
Sure.
I was in Naval Junior ROTC in Nebraska.
There it is.
Yeah,
And you
even
switched
more
branches.
nerdy, even more things for the internet to make fun of me for. But who doesn't already make fun of me for it? It was a weird point in my life. So you want to join the army? Is it that would just
Absolutely not.
okay?
I I love the army, and I think the army is a wonderful branch, but um, no, it's not for me.
I think that answer makes sense because you never volunteered for GFTX, and I don't think you would have liked it to begin with.
I don't know. It's just it's a very coarse branch, and while I love that nitty gritty and that harshness, I think the Air Force is a little more up my alley.
That's true, and I think that's what a lot of people have to understand when they're thinking about what service they want to join. Is that each of them has their own personality.
Yes.
Like, I don't think I would have fit in well with the Marine Corps.
No, because, well, no, I can't say that because I'll offend most Marines, and they are strong and have weapons.
That is true. And you can't doubt the Marine fighting ability because those men and women know how to kick down doors and know how to invade countries. They're very good at it. And they're
Yes.
very good at what they do. But they also have nonsensical rules. Like, did you hear about what the defense secretary just repealed?
No.
So now, officially, you can wear sports attire into a BX or a commissary. Ladies and gentlemen, we got them.
Gotta love the military.
That was a rule. And I've lived on a lot of military bases, like Air Force bases, and that just shows you like the culture difference between the Air Force and the Marine Corps. Is that I thought it was just like because I knew about that Marine Corps rule where you had to like dress respectfully. You usually wear pants and like a shirt, and that will get you through the door. You can't wear yoga pants. Like females can't wear yoga pants. They can't like wear sports attire into the commissary. And there have been stories about people getting turned away. The podcast Zero Block 30 talked about it, and it kind of hit home because when I lived in Virginia, we went to Quantico, and I had someone come up to me, and we was like right after we came from the gym, we were in the BX or the PX for the Marines,
Yeah.
and he came up and asked me if I was a Marine, and I think he was, if I had answered yes, he would have yelled at me until I melted into a puddle, and I would probably deserve to if I was a Marine. But I was also a 19-year-old idiot who didn't know any better because I lived on an Air Force base my entire life.
Yeah.
That's just not a rule in the Air. That's or at least the
Not one that's enforced.
I would say probably the wearing the PT gears because they mention a lot about it on the podcast. Like you couldn't wear your PT gear in. I've never seen anyone actually wear their PT gear in before, but like civilian workout attire, I've seen people do that all the time on an Air Force base. And
I mean, that makes sense.
yeah, so Air Force, and also
Ugh.
because Dead 630 is the best detachment in Ohio.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it is. I have nothing to compare that to, and now you've got me on that. Like, I sure
Oh,
it is.
you don't have to agree to it.
In my experience, yes, it is the best detachment, hands down.
I will say we have in my 4 years at Det 630, which is only 4 years, we were very good at like situational leadership and making judgment calls on what was the right thing to do. We were never the best at drill. We didn't have the best Arnold Air Society or any other program like that. We were good at judgment leadership and trusting our younger cadets to get stuff done. I think that's what matters sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a fair judgment call. I definitely think that we are a good detachment, and I'm proud and happy with how things are running, and I enjoy my time in ROTC. So, I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything, and obviously I'm still in the program, so that says something as well.
How are you liking your time at Kent?
Well,
How
it's
are you liking Orca?
quarantine, so I'm not really at Kent, and I hate that I'm not at Kent. I love the campus, I love the people, and I do miss being there. It's just that feel of being on campus.
Well, it's not financially feasible right now.
No, not at
Oh,
all.
not one from what you've told me, and also two because of COVID. Like you're, from what I hear, people are barely at school, and when you're at school, you're barely doing work to begin with. Like
Exactly.
college was already like there's this myth of that college is hard, and it's probably harder on the harder sciences. But if you're in a liberal arts degree, and this is coming from someone who got a degree in English, one of the foofiest of the liberal arts degrees, It is not hard. College is not hard.
I would disagree. I think
Well,
college
you
is.
are in a harder. Okay, I would say English is the easiest of the liberal science or of the College of Arts and Sciences degrees you could possibly get at Kent.
I think it's a fair assumption.
You're in
But
a harder degree because you have to actually put more thought and debate against professors who are, and not to say I didn't have to debate against professors who are 10 times smarter than I was. It was a lot more opinion based, and you didn't have to throw as much fact as I feel like poli sci would require. So, like, what is your typical course load look like?
well, even the whole degree looks different. And
Mhm.
I think that's the caveat there is that it's not college as a whole is not to teach you dates and names and people and things. It's to change your whole thought process and teach you how to think critically and how to write critically and how to execute things in a different way, in a smarter way, in a better way, in a more poignant way. And I think that is it's especially true for political science and for pre-law, obviously, because
Mhm.
at that point you are listening to what people are saying every single day, and you're just listening for those little things that you can attack and the base of the argument, and you're searching for why somebody feels this way or something like that. And I remember sitting in political thought, which is entirely a philosophical class where you have to learn about liberalism and realism and anarchism and Marxism and all of these different ideologies. And it's this whole class of what's your opinion and what's your opinion and what's your opinion. I, I would walk in that morning and there's 60 some kids in this class and all of them are equally intelligent. And I had these people every single day that would voice their opinion and make sure that when they did speak, it was something substantive. And I would always try to jump in and fight or voice my opinion as well. And there was one kid who was a self proclaimed anarchist.
You know, those are
And
always the best.
yes, and
I had, I think, either an anarchist. No, I think he was an anarchist. He was an anarchist in my senior seminar, and I found him the most interesting person I've ever had a chance to listen to.
yes, she,
Okay, it was different people then because this was a he.
ah,
I'm
she,
pretty sure.
she was, I don't want to say my enemy because we ended up, I wouldn't say being friends, but on a good note. Um,
Acquaintances.
yes,
I feel like that's a
and
term that we don't use enough in America.
right,
I learned the term acquaintance in German class in high school. And I was like, that's such a good term because I have 1,000 acquaintances and only a couple friends.
exactly. But with her, we knew every single day when we came in, whatever question Dr. Molina, our professor, posed to us, we were going to be on opposite sides. And I would just kind of watch her, and she would kind of watch me for whenever our hands went up, so that we could start listening and paying attention so that we could attack the other person's argument. And it was a blast to be able to just discuss with someone who completely and utterly disagreed with me and yet respected who I was and my opinion nonetheless.
Those were always my favorite classes in Kent. So, what was the class size? Pose that question. What was the class size, or was that political thought?
Yes, it was like a daily class of 64, 63.
Ooh, well, you had a good conversation, a class of 64.
Yes, it was nice.
That is impressive. I found that class conversation, like, do you want to have a good class conversation it might be because people who pursue a poli sci degree are probably more outspoken to start with.
Yes,
And
I
then
would think that's a fair assumption.
I think that's a fair thesis of people who pursue that degree. When you look at people who pursue an English degree, it's a bunch of book nerds. And as a self proclaimed book nerd who's socially introvert, that is one of the hardest things to do, but that's one of the things that makes a good English class amazing is that you have those ideas that bounce off of someone and you bounce off the professor. Like we were talking about the anarchist. I
Yeah.
actually agreed with him on some things. And it's like, oh, we're not all different. Do I believe that we should burn down the government? No. But I do believe in prison reform. That's something I can work on with you.
Yes, and it's that compromise that the whole foundation of the United States was built on. But
It's not even compromise. I don't think I would compromise. It's finding equal footing or equal ground to start an acquaintance with.
yeah,
Because you can't there's some things you can't compromise on. And I don't think there's things he would compromise on. But there's things that we can agree on because we have similar ideas.
but finding the area where you can slightly agree, finding that area where there is common ground, where there is an agreement, that's where you can compromise. Obviously, there are areas that you'll never be able to sacrifice. Those core values, those things that you're never willing to give up.
And maybe it's partially like humility. Like humility to be quiet and listen to the other person for a second and see what they have to think.
Ego is the worst possible thing when it comes to any kind of debate.
I think you just solved American political problems.
Hey,
Last
that's
20.
what I'm here for.
Well, it's a good thing 20 people will listen to this.
Yeah, the whole three people,
The
and two
whole
of them
three.
are us.
I'm not listening to this. I
Oh,
hate the
yeah,
sound of my own
yeah,
voice.
me too.
We
So
talked
never
about this.
mind.
We were talking about this 30 minutes ago.
It's just one
I'm
person.
going to try my best not to listen to my own voice, but at the same time, know that is something that I want to continue this, and this is something I do want to continue.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
probably get over that social anxiety. It's my own internal social anxiety. That's no work on that.
yeah.
So, what type of law do you want to practice for the Air Force, and then afterward, like going forward, whenever you're done with the Air Force?
So the Air Force offers multiple different areas of law that are available, obviously, to the public at large. Um, so there is like contract law or litigation, prosecution, um, or you could be
Air defense.
a defense attorney, right?
Mm.
So I would like to do really any of them, but I would
Mm.
love to do litigation and I'd love to do prosecution. I think making sure that people who do wrong end up where they need to is an honorable profession, and I think that it's a worthwhile profession. Um,
I think I would have to agree with that. There are some. I don't think I could ever be a defense attorney in the military. Not after like reading some of the stories about some of the worst people. Somehow the worst people and the worst stories I've ever read have been about service members like going to jail for X number of crimes. And
yeah,
it just proves I think the theory that I have that like we are a slice, we're just a sliver of the American population, and it's a good thing. But it also means some people slip through the cracks, and they're awful people who should probably burn at the stake for some of the things they do.
Yes,
Though
but I
that
think
is
one
not.
of the truly beautiful things about the American judicial system is that we would rather see 99 guilty people walk free than see one innocent person in prison. And I think that's something we get away from a lot. But it is one of this country's best exports. Writing that down and making it law and saying, we do not want to be a country that locks up all of its citizens and throws away the key. We want to be a country that says, if you are a citizen, you will be protected by the law. You will be protected by your government, and you will be protected by the courts. Not prosecuted if you are innocent. I think that's something we get away from now, and I think getting into law, which is what I want to do, is a good way to fix it. If you have a problem with something, join it and fix it from the inside.
Yeah. That's some. Well, so I think that's something that thing you were talking about, like locking away the innocent or locking away someone and throwing away the key. That's something that's I feel like it's coming up more and more in the political talk, and that's to bring back the anarchist. And I feel like people are going to start thinking I'm an anarchist. I'm not. I'm the opposite. So, Mr. NSA, if you're listening, I'm not. But that was that was the point that the anarchist was bringing up. It was about prison reform, and I believe it's the 13th Amendment. There was a documentary about uh, the pseudo slave labor of the prisons. I was like, yeah, I agree
Yeah,
with that. I don't think we should be using Americans as labor force for menial work. If you pay them proper wages and you don't force them to do it, it's opportunity to work. But at the same time, they're not getting that right now. So either you stop them or you compensate them properly.
it's a very difficult position, and I think nobody wants to tackle it because it's such a big issue. It's so daunting that you look at it and you say, I don't know where to start.
I think people want to so I would agree with it's a big issue, but people are tackling it. I think there's a lot of powers that be that don't want to stop it. Do you believe differently?
I
And I hope that doesn't sound like a dismissive tone. I was just trying to fill the silence.
no, I get it. I I think nobody's tackling criminal justice reform on the level that it needs to be addressed. I
I don't.
definitely think that there are people who do their best to reform it in whatever way that they can, but it needs total and utter overhaul. And both sides agree on this: Republican, Democrat, Independent, Green, Libertarian, Progressive. I don't care if you're purple. Everyone agrees that you need severe criminal justice overhaul, and nobody is doing it.
Well, Oregon started a process. It's a very interesting process. South Dakota just legalized marijuana. Mississippi, I think, legalized it for medical use.
Yes, but I'm not even talking about just like marijuana use. It's the system is just fundamentally wrong. We elect judges. I don't know why we elect judges. I don't know how that makes sense.
What process?
Why?
I always found that interesting, but what process would you suggest for how we appoint our judges other than how federal judges are appointed? Do you think the state government should appoint judges?
Yes, I think the state government, including the state house and the governor, should appoint
So, like a
judges.
mini federal government. So the governor appoints, and it's up to the
The
state.
state senate to approve them. Yeah, I mean, and this is, I'm an optimist when it comes to how government should function. So when I say this, it's in the hopes that governors look past party and Senates look past party and say, is this person capable of doing this job? And are they the best suited for this job? Not, is this person going to fulfill what I expect them to do?
Mm.
And so I get into some trouble there because I know that that's not how the world works, and I know that that's not how our government works. But I think that that's how it should be. And I definitely think it's better than what we have now.
I agree with
There are
that.
too many people who walk into the voting booth only voting for one thing. And then for the rest of them, they just pick a random name, or they just pick a name with an R or a D next to their name. And
Yeah.
while I think it's worked out fine thus far, I don't think it's going to be effective forever. And I think we should adjust that accordingly.
Now you're playing with your dog.
Yep, she's whining, and I don't know why. So I think she wants to come on the podcast.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
Did you hear about Oregon decriminalizing all drugs?
I did hear about that.
Which I feel like I take the very libertarian view on that. It was like, all right, use, and I've never shied away from my belief on it. So like marijuana, uh, federally legal, not allowed for military service members, and tax the crap out of it, and use that money to rebuild roads.
I would agree. And see, I don't see how we can
And every
make
other drug,
marijuana illegal and not make tobacco illegal.
I
Tobacco
mean,
is proven to kill people, and marijuana has done nothing of the sort.
unless you're Hawaii and you're incrementally trying to make sure no one else could buy it.
See, that's the way to do it.
That you've heard about Hawaii's program, right?
Yes, you just do
Oh
it over
God, the
time.
greatest thing ever. Or it's I don't know if it's the greatest thing ever because I'm bring back the libertarian point. Do whatever you want to your body as long as you're not harming someone and not spreading. I don't think there should be opening up shops for crack.
Opening up shops for crack.
Like a crack dispensary. I
That's
don't think
quite the selling point for Hawaii.
or okay, Oregon.
Oh,
I don't
sir,
think
it's still quite the selling point for Oregon. Come to Oregon. We have shops that sell you crack.
but if you want to put that in your body, by all means do that.
I
Just
disagree. I think that the government has a responsibility to protect its citizens, even sometimes from themselves.
That's true, but we've been doing that for the now. When did the war on drugs start?
Oh God, under the Bush administration.
Bush Senior.
Yeah,
So let's ballpark it the 90, like
yeah.
1990,
It's about
before
30 years.
yeah, 30 years before either of us were born.
Like, no, about 9 years before either of us were born.
Okay,
30 years from now.
yeah. So how well has protecting the American people from drugs gone?
It's not going well. But then again, how did the war in the Gulf go?
That's true.
And how's the war on terror going?
I feel like the war on terror is doing as well as it can.
I think we are doing well in the war on terror. I think it's just difficult. And it's nobody's fault, but we can't find them. They're not a state. They don't have a capital. We can't go in and take the capital and plant the flag and say, "Hey, we took your country."
Well, that worked
They
very well in Baghdad.
It's an ideology, and killing an ideology is nearly impossible.
My comment was also sarcasm. It didn't work.
I know.
It didn't work
Um,
at all in Baghdad.
yes, I know, and that's why I flew right past it.
I'm okay with making it's history.
It is,
It's
and
history is history, and if people get mad at me for making that statement, I'm sorry, but we need to learn from our defeats as much as we learn from our victories. And if you don't want to call Iraq a complete mess, you can call it at least not a net positive.
I think you brought up a good point, though, like saying that it didn't work in Baghdad, and it's not working in the Middle East right now, fighting terror.
Mm.
And this is gonna sound interesting, but hear me out.
No, I'd love to hear this.
The end of World War II, we won the war against the Germans and the Japanese and the Italians, and we defeated Nazism and we ended their brutal reign
Mm-hmm.
and restored democracy to Germany, and now Germany is one of the leading countries in the world.
Same with Japan.
But you see a resurgence of Nazism. It's that they even call themselves neo-Nazis. We won the war against the country, against the Third Reich, against everything that Hitler stood for. But
Mm-hmm.
the ideology still survives. And that just proves how persistent those ideals are. And I think that is the most brutal part about fighting these wars, is you
I think
can't win against an ideology.
yeah. Well, a lot of that too is the Nazis kind of escaped over to Argentina.
Well, yeah, but they were going to come back either way.
That is true. So why do you think? Because I agree that from what I've seen on the European stage of world politics, that it does seem to be a resurgence in Germany. Why do you think that type of ideology has resurged? Do you think it's just America's fear and disdain of fascism? Because I feel like you don't see him as much of a backlash towards, or you see a imperial Japan resurgence, because you're seeing this Nazism resurgence in Germany, but you're not seeing it as or any of it in Japan. Have you ever thought of it like why is it happening in Germany? Or you think
I
it's just the
haven't,
ideology is such a cancerous thing that it's just gonna keep on trying to grow back?
and I don't even think that it's just Germany, but it's that because we have neo Nazis here in the United
Hmm.
States. And I think it's that radical right. And I'm sure that there are those radical people
It didn't help that
in
we brought Nazis
Japan.
over to America too.
Yeah, that's true. Um, but I think, and this is going to get a little political, but it's not going to talk about anything specific politically. But you look at the map after every presidential election and you see how Democrats win in those highly populated areas,
Mm.
in those diverse, densely populated cities.
Mm.
Japan is this highly populated island that has almost no rural areas. It's a lot of it's urban, suburban, and most people tend to lean toward cities and stay toward these populated areas. But in Germany and in the United States and in other parts of Europe, they have countries that are spread out. And so you have these people, these rural areas where people live hours and hours away from big cities and away from these diverse populations. And I think that diversity and that everyday, incessant, and constant
Interaction.
with other people
Mm.
is closely tied to liberalism. I don't know how, but I think it is. And I think that that's a fair assumption. So Japan, obviously, is going to be more of a liberal country because they don't have that rural area to
Mm.
have that far right ferment and grow. But in places like France, where they have plenty of rural areas, or Germany, where they have plenty of rural areas, or especially the United States, where we have plenty of rural areas, you're going to see that far right conservatism that just hatred grow. And I'm obviously not calling all conservatives hateful. I have plenty of conservative friends, and I think that they're all amazing, and I know that they are all loving and caring. It's just the far right and the far left are equal in hatred and disdain for each other and everything except for their own ideology.
At what point do you think they're going to start clashing? Because that was a concern after the election, that people were going to start clashing in the streets.
I think we might be surprised, and that people might keep their pants on, for lack of a better term. I have hope, and I have faith in this country, and I have faith that people will just unite after this extremely divisive time. I mean, you see it in just starting in France and in Germany and in the UK, this severe divisiveness. It's not stark yet, and it's not as prevalent as it is here, but the seeds are there. But I think we can get away from it, and I think that they are better equipped to stay away from it because they have multi-party systems. The UK Parliament is made up of how many different parties, and you have to have a coalition in order to form a government. And I think that is just naturally.
4 at a minimum? Is there at least? I know of at least, I think, a minimum of 4. I can name the 2 major.
Yeah, the Tories and
And the
Labour.
Labor. Yeah.
Right. And then
Because
there's the Green, there's the FMP.
Because I got into a rabbit hole whenever was it the speaker, their House Speaker was about to resign.
John, yeah, John
What a character!
Bercow.
Yeah, what a character! He was amazing to watch on YouTube. I think I listened to a couple hours of him just talking. I was so interested in British politics, even though I knew nothing about it. And to be honest, I know almost nothing. I know a very minimal amount of American politics.
It's a lot. And I think there are a lot of people who consider themselves aficionados on the subject. But it's so intense. And then you take a look at another system, a parliamentary system, and it's a totally different ballgame. You finally think you know how something works, and then it changes on you.
Yeah.
And then people hear that France has a president, and they think, oh, their system is just like ours.
I don't know. It's a parliament, right?
Exactly, it's a parliament. And President Emmanuel Macron, he's a good and strong national figure, but a lot of his power is derived from the parliament, and he has almost no power, no executive power.
Have you heard about the backlash that he got in the past couple of weeks with the terrorist attacks?
Yes, France is going through the ringer.
When isn't France going through the ringer?
Yeah.
When isn't Europe going through the ringer?
That's true.
So let me ask you a question just about European politics.
Okay.
Where were you in your life the summer that the British left the EU? Because this will tell you a lot about like what our age difference is. Because let me guess, were you no, you were still in high school. You were probably in between your junior and senior year. Was it the summer between your junior and
Well,
senior?
they didn't leave until this year.
Okay, the vote.
They voted to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been
When was
my
yeah?
senior year, I think.
It was the summer because I know exactly where I was because it's imprinted in my memory where I was.
Yeah, I think it was my senior year.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure though.
Yeah.
But I
Because
do remember going over that vote though and reading about it and just kind of being, wow, that's awful.
it's an interesting experience. I was in Europe at the time. I was in Italy. We
Really?
were Yeah, I was on my study abroad in Florence, and we were taking a trip to Venice, and we were leaving our hostel at the time. And I remember walking and seeing a street side vendor in Venice with the paper UK leaves EU, and I bought a copy, and I have it somewhere in my apartment right now. And I was like, ooh, this is this
Memory.
this is one of those moments where I feel like I should have I should have a physical copy of the paper. This seems like one of those historical moments.
Yes.
Like I still have the paper of when we killed Bin Laden, because that was also one of those.
Yeah, one of those perfect historical moments. I remember watching the president um, speak after that. I
I
remember the news networks. He was like 45 minutes late or something, and they kept.
it was super long. I remember because my sister was complaining about why it was taking so long and what he was like, what were we waiting for? And the news networks, because I read a book about it, and they said some Navy, it was some like reservist Navy intel guy like broke the story, and to this day, I wonder how a reservist got that information.
I mean, hey,
So through the fact that it was an active duty unit, well, it shows you how locktight our intelligence community is.
always gonna have leaks. If
Oh,
there's any type of human involved, there will be a leak.
that is true. But we were on the couch, and my sister was talking. I was like, "What are they doing?" I was like, "Shut up, shut up! The president is about to talk." And
Yeah,
it's from
he's.
from the cheering in the streets. Oh my gosh!
I cannot believe the level of unprofessionalism that I am seeing right now.
There's no way I could have put my phone on silence.
The level of just pure unprofessionalism.
That is why does it not shock me for the first podcast? What were we talking about?
President Obama coming
That
out
is
and
true.
announcing we
I would
got
say one of
Bin
the
Laden.
highlights of America, or
Yeah,
highlights of America in the time that both of us were alive
yes,
and could remember.
that pride and unity. Just, and I mean, I can't think of a word.
No, I think
But
unity.
the ability to grieve properly.
Because
I think that is one of the biggest things that we can draw from that occasion.
I would say that unity over the most tragic event in modern American history, if not the most tragic event in American history. Because the next best would be always that it would be Pearl Harbor. But I think this is more powerful because we have videos and photos, and every year we like to remind ourselves what happened. And social media makes it very like if it wasn't already easy to never forget, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
It only got easier with the advent of social media, and you're never gonna forget. And that was probably it'd be the peak. September, like I've heard people talk about how September 12th was a peak of national unity. And I
yeah.
think for us, And then that was a peak for people now in their 40s who are our age living through it. And I would say that day in May is probably our peak of unity.
I think,
and it'll probably be our peak for a while.
yeah, and I think that I don't think that there's a generation that remembers this anymore, but when FDR went on TV and said December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, I think that is another one of those times that the
That's probably
country was unified and ready for that, just ready to go. Everybody's, yes.
That was the first September 12th.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave this conversation.
I would agree.
What's that?
I would agree.
Yeah. America is stronger unified, and at the end of the day, America is still going to be America, and we're going to make it out of it.
Yes, yeah. That is a wonderful note to end on.
How about this? Any closing thoughts, Leo? Because I know this is only going to be this will be your only appearance, but it's a strong first appearance for the first episode of the podcast.
You know, it's my genuine pleasure. I don't have any closing thoughts. I think I've given all of my 2 cents, especially with that last American unity.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, and thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful night.